The vet's scream shattered the silence. This isn't possible, she whispered. Her gloved hands trembled as she stared at what lay before her. The German Shepherd had just given birth, but these newborns didn't look like ordinary puppies. Their skin shimmered faintly, their cries carried an eerie tone, and one of them had eyes already open. This can't be real, she whispered, stepping back in disbelief. Moments ago it was a routine checkup. Now every nurse in the room stood silent, hearts racing. Outside, the anxious owner knocked on the glass, desperate for news. The vet looked up, pale as a ghost. Call the lab, she muttered. Now. What they discovered next would stun the entire town and change veterinary science forever. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The clock on the clinic wall ticked past midnight. The fluorescent lights flickered softly, casting long shadows across the quiet examination room. Dr. Harris rubbed her tired eyes and began tidying her desk, ready to lock up after another long day. Outside, the world was still, until the sudden screech of tires shattered the calm. The clinic door burst open. A man stumbled in, drenched from the rain, carrying a large, limp German Shepherd in his arms. Please, she's in trouble, he gasped, voice cracking with desperation. The dog's chest rose and fell unevenly, her fur matted with sweat and mud. Dr. Harris sprang into action, instinct overtaking exhaustion. Get her on the table, she ordered, pulling on her gloves. The man obeyed, trembling as he laid the dog down. Her name's Luna, he said breathlessly. She's pregnant. I think she's dying. Dr. Harris pressed a stethoscope to Luna's chest. The heartbeat was erratic, strong one moment, faint the next. She called for her assistant, who hurried in, prepping oxygen and IV fluids. When did the contraction start? She asked. Hours ago, the man replied, wiping rain from his face. I tried to get help sooner, but he hesitated. We live far out, near the old Ridgeway military complex. Her eyes flickered up. That place was shut down years ago, she said, confused. I know, he whispered. That's where I found her. Months back, wandering near the ruins. She was already pregnant then. The vet's brow furrowed. Luna whimpered weakly, her body trembling as another contraction hit. Dr. Harris focused on stabilizing her vitals. Something about this dog felt different. Too resilient, too aware, like she understood every word being said. Stay with me, girl, she murmured, stroking Luna's head. The dog's amber eyes flicked open, filled with both pain and something deeper, fear. As the storm raged outside, Dr. Harris didn't yet realize this was no ordinary birth. It was the beginning of something no one in that small town would ever forget. The operating room buzzed with urgency. Stainless steel instruments gleamed under the white fluorescent lights as the rain hammered against the windows. Dr. Harris moved quickly, slipping on her sterile gloves, her assistant adjusting the oxygen mask over Luna's muzzle. The German Shepherd's breathing grew labored, each inhale a struggle. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, meeting Dr. Harris's gaze with a plea that pierced through the chaos. She's losing strength, the assistant warned. The monitor beeped erratically, the numbers flickering. Dr. Harris steadied her hands. Not on my watch, she whispered. She injected a mild sedative and repositioned Luna gently. The air felt heavy, like the entire room was holding its breath. Then it began. Luna's body tensed, her muscles contracting sharply. The first puppy emerged, slick and trembling, but alive. Relief flooded the room for a brief second until Dr. Harris noticed something unusual. The newborn's skin shimmered faintly under the surgical lights, not with moisture, but with a subtle metallic sheen. Its eyes opened almost immediately. Impossible for a newborn. Is that normal? The assistant asked, voice shaky. Dr. Harris didn't answer. She leaned closer, inspecting the tiny creature. No, she said finally. It's not. Before she could react, another contraction hit, then another. 2 more puppies followed, each with the same strange glow, their tiny bodies wriggling in perfect rhythm. Luna groaned, exhausted but relentless. She's delivering too fast, Dr. Harris muttered. This isn't natural. Within minutes, the table filled with life, newborns crying softly, moving with uncanny coordination. The vet's heart raced. Every instinct told her something was off, but her training forced her to keep going. Hang in there, Luna, she whispered, voice steady but heart pounding. The final contraction came violently, stronger than the rest. Dr. Harris caught another pup, smaller, weaker, but as she lifted it, its eyes opened, glowing faintly gold. For a moment, no one moved. Even the sound of rain seemed to fade. The vet swallowed hard, staring at the impossible sight before her. "What are you, little one?" she murmured. And somewhere deep inside her, a chill spread, because she already knew this was only the beginning. The clock ticked past 1 a.m., but time had lost meaning inside that room. The air was thick with tension, the rhythmic sound of the heart monitor pulsing like a drumbeat. Luna panted heavily, her sides heaving with every contraction. Sweat glistened on Dr. Harris's brow as she worked swiftly, her gloved hands trembling from exhaustion and disbelief. "Another one," her assistant whispered, carefully wrapping the latest puppy in a towel. It was the 13th. Dr. Harris blinked in shock. "That's impossible," she muttered. "No dog should be able to carry this many." But Luna wasn't done. Her muscles contracted again, stronger, more desperate. Another puppy slid into the doctor's hands, then another and another. The assistant's voice shook. 17. 18. The count rose faster than anyone could process. Dr. Harris's heart pounded. The puppies weren't just numerous, they were identical. Each had the same charcoal gray coat, the same faint golden shimmer beneath their fur, the same unnerving intelligence flickering behind still opening eyes. They moved in perfect rhythm, breathing and twitching in unison as if guided by a single heartbeat. The vet stared, transfixed and uneasy. "How is this possible?" she whispered. Her assistant crossed herself under her breath. "It's like they're copies." At 21, the room fell silent. Luna collapsed against the table, her breathing shallow but steady. The floor was lined with towels, every inch occupied by wriggling newborns. A strange calm settled over them. They stopped crying all at once, as if responding to an unheard signal. Dr. Harris and her assistant exchanged terrified glances. The vet reached out, running a trembling hand across one pup's back. Its tiny body was warm, alive, but there was something beneath the skin. A subtle ridge. A pattern. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. Tiny embossed markings, barely visible, ran across the side of its ribcage like etched numbers. Her throat tightened. "No," she whispered. "These aren't ordinary puppies." Luna stirred weakly, lifting her head to glance at her litter, a low whine escaping her throat. Protective. Maternal, almost warning. Dr. Harris looked up slowly, voice barely audible. "What did they do to you, girl?" The storm outside had quieted, but inside the clinic the tension only deepened. The lights hummed softly, reflecting off stainless steel instruments now streaked with water and blood. Dr. Harris stood frozen, staring at the newborns that now filled the table. 21 tiny lives breathing in eerie synchrony. It should have been beautiful, but instead it felt wrong. She took a slow breath and reached for her magnifying lamp. "We need to document this," she said quietly. Her assistant nodded, grabbing a notepad with trembling hands. Dr. Harris leaned close to the first pup. The embossed ridges along its ribcage were clearer now. Tiny, perfect numbers like a machine's serial code. It was row 1, her stomach twisted. She moved to the next. I2, then A003. One by one, each carried its own code, etched into the skin as if branded from birth. Her voice shook. "These aren't natural markings. They're manufactured." The assistant blinked. "Manufactured? You mean someone did this?" Dr. Harris didn't answer right away. Her mind raced through possibilities. Genetic manipulation, cloning, experimental breeding. But none of them explained how these pups survived. They were too healthy, too aware. Their eyes followed her every movement, unblinking, as if studying her in return. She reached for a scalpel, not to harm, but to take a tissue sample. As the blade touched the skin, the puppy whimpered softly. Instantly, every other newborn lifted its head, releasing the same tiny whine at the exact same time. The sound sent a chill up her spine. "Did you see that?" her assistant whispered. Dr. Harris froze. "They reacted. Together." Her voice was a whisper now, fear creeping into it. Whatever Luna was exposed to, it wasn't natural breeding. "This is controlled. Designed." She turned toward the exhausted dog resting on the table. Luna's eyes opened, glowing faintly in the dim light. For the first time in her career, Dr. Harris felt truly afraid, not of death but of discovery. She looked back at the newborns, their numbers, their synchrony, their strange calm. Her whisper was barely audible. "Someone created them, and we're not supposed to know they exist." The rain had stopped, leaving the world outside eerily still. Inside the clinic, the air felt heavy, thick with secrets. Dr. Harris stood by Luna's table, staring at the newborns curled beneath warm towels. The faint rhythm of their breathing echoed in her mind like a whisper she couldn't silence. Behind her, the door creaked open. The owner, Daniel, stepped in hesitantly, his clothes still damp, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. "How is she?" he asked, voice trembling. Dr. Harris turned slowly, her face pale under the harsh light. "She's alive, but you need to tell me the truth." He blinked, confused. "The truth?" She motioned toward the litter. "These markings, these numbers, they're not natural. You said you found her near the Ridgeway complex, didn't you?" Daniel's eyes flickered with fear. Yes, but I didn't know what?" She pressed, her voice sharpening. "That she was part of something she shouldn't have survived." He sank into the nearest chair, rubbing his hands over his face. Silence stretched before he finally spoke, his tone low and broken. "I used to work there. Security detail. They said it was a research lab for animal genetics, disease resistance, intelligence studies, that kind of thing. But then things went wrong." Dr. Harris's pulse quickened. "What do you mean wrong?" Daniel hesitated. "One night alarms went off. They ordered an evacuation, said there'd been contamination, but I saw the truth before I left. Cages, rows of them. Dogs with eyes like fire, moving in perfect unison. And Luna, she was one of them. I thought they all died when the lab shut down." His voice cracked. "Months later, I found her wandering near the ruins. She was hurt, scared, and pregnant." Dr. Harris's chest tightened. She turned back to the litter, realization dawning like a storm. "These puppies," she whispered. "They're the continuation of that experiment." Daniel looked up, eyes filled with guilt. "If that's true," he said quietly, "then we're in danger just knowing they exist." Outside, thunder rumbled again, soft, distant like a warning from the dark. Night deepened around the clinic, the storm clouds breaking just enough to let in a faint wash of moonlight. The hum of the fluorescent lights had quieted, replaced by the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Dr. Harris sat slumped in her chair, exhaustion etched across her face, yet her mind refused to rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the numbers, A001 through A021, etched into fragile skin that shouldn't exist. Luna slept nearby under a heat lamp, her breathing slow but steady. The puppies lay huddled together in a padded box, tiny chests rising and falling in eerie harmony. At first, Dr. Harris thought it was coincidence, until she noticed something strange. Each time the air conditioner clicked on, all 21 puppies turned their heads at once toward the sound. Not one after another simultaneously. Their movements were too perfect, too synchronized, as if guided by a shared instinct, or a single mind. She blinked hard, rubbing her temples. "I must be overtired," she murmured. But when she dimmed the lights to rest, they reacted again, all of them shifting closer to Luna, forming a precise half-circle around her. Her assistant, who had dozed off on a nearby stool, stirred. "Doc, are they doing that on purpose?" Dr. Harris didn't answer. She leaned closer to the enclosure. The puppy's eyes flickered open, glowing faintly in the low light. They were awake but silent. No whimpers, no movement, just a collective gaze fixed on her. A chill crawled down her spine. "They're aware," she whispered. Then, as if responding to her voice, one of the puppies stood, letting out a small cry. Instantly, the others joined in, their tiny voices rising together in perfect pitch. A haunting, harmonious sound that made the hair on her arms stand up. Luna stirred, letting out a low growl, protective and anxious. Dr. Harris stepped back slowly. "They're communicating," she breathed. Her assistant frowned. "With us?" The vet shook her head, her eyes locked on the synchronized litter. "No," she whispered. "With each other." Outside, the night wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the first hint that something far greater was awakening. By dawn, the clinic felt more like a battlefield than a place of healing. The air was heavy with fatigue and tension. The metallic scent of antiseptic clung to everything. Luna lay motionless on the table, her breathing shallow. The once alert German Shepherd now looked fragile, her strength drained after the impossible birth. Dr. Harris leaned over her, checking vitals again and again. "Come on, girl," she whispered. "You've made it this far. But the monitor disagreed. Luna's heart rate dipped, each beep slower than the last. The puppies whimpered softly from their box. Then, without warning, one of them, AOR07, struggled free from the towel and crawled toward Luna. Dr. Harris moved to stop it, but something made her freeze. The tiny pup pressed its head against its mother's chest. For a second, nothing happened. Then the monitor steadied. Dr. Harris's breath caught. Her pulse. It's stabilizing, the assistant stared. That's impossible. Yet it was happening. Luna's breathing deepened, her heartbeat regaining rhythm. The other puppies began to stir, their faint cries merging into a single harmonic tone that filled the room with eerie calm. It wasn't noise, it was connection. Dr. Harris stepped back, watching in disbelief. They're linked to her, she murmured. Every one of them. A flicker of warmth crossed Luna's eyes as she turned toward her litter, a faint wag in her tail. But then, as quickly as hope returned, pain ripped through her body. She yelped, muscles spasming violently. The puppies responded instantly, crying in unison, writhing as though sharing her agony. Sedative now. Dr. Harris barked. The assistant rushed to prepare it, hands shaking. When the injection took effect, Luna's body finally stilled, but the silence that followed was unbearable. The puppies fell quiet too, all 21 curling around one another, trembling. Dr. Harris sank into her chair, staring at the lifeless monitors. She had saved lives before, but never like this. Whispering to herself, she said, "Whatever they are, their bond defies everything I know." Outside, the first light of morning crept through the blinds, cold, pale, and unsettlingly still. Morning light filtered weakly through the blinds, painting long gray lines across the clinic floor. The storm had passed, but an uneasy stillness lingered. Dr. Harris stood by the observation window, sipping stale coffee, her eyes fixed on Luna and the 21 sleeping puppies. They looked peaceful now, too peaceful. She could still hear their synchronized cries echoing in her head. The front doorbell chimed, startling her. She turned as a man stepped inside. Tall, crisp suit, a badge glinting faintly under his coat. "Dr. Harris?" he asked, his voice calm but cold. "I'm Agent Collins. Animal Health Control Division," she frowned. "I didn't request any agency. And there isn't an Animal Health Control Division." The man smiled faintly, sidestepping the comment. "We received a report of an anomalous litter born here last night. Mind if I take a look?" Every instinct screamed no, but Dr. Harris nodded slowly, masking her unease. "They're resting. I'll show you the records instead." Collins glanced around the clinic as she handed him her clipboard. He flipped through the pages methodically. 21 live births, 1 mother, markings resembling serial codes. His tone stayed flat, but his eyes betrayed recognition. "Interesting." He slipped the file into his briefcase without asking. "These animals need to be transferred to our facility immediately." Dr. Harris's heart pounded. "They're not lab samples, they're living beings. They stay here until Luna recovers." Collins' expression didn't change. "Doctor, these animals are government property." Her voice hardened. "Not anymore." The room fell silent. For a long moment they just stared at each other, the exhausted vet and the immaculate stranger. Then with unsettling calm, Collins said, "If you care about your license, you'll cooperate." She didn't move. Instead, she reached for her lab coat pocket, where she had already hidden a small carrier. Inside, 1 sleeping puppy, A021, the smallest of them all. Collins turned to leave, his parting words cold and deliberate. "Some things are better left undiscovered, Doctor." As the door shut behind him, Dr. Harris looked down at the tiny creature she'd hidden away and whispered, "Then they should have never created you in the first place." The clinic was quiet again, but Dr. Harris could no longer find peace in the silence. Every ticking second sounded like a countdown. She locked the door, dimmed the lights, and carried the small carrier containing A021 into her private lab. The tiny German Shepherd puppy whimpered softly, unaware of the storm building outside these walls. Dr. Harris gently placed the pup on the examination table, her gloved hands trembling. "Let's see what they're hiding inside you," she whispered. She drew a small blood sample and loaded it into the analyzer. The machine whirred softly, lights flickering as it processed the data. Minutes later, the monitor filled with graphs and lines that made no biological sense. "No," she murmured, leaning closer. The DNA sequence displayed hybrid markers, Part canine, part something else. There were fragments of synthetic code embedded in the genetic structure, artificial patterns designed by human hands. She scrolled through the results, her pulse rising. Intelligence enhancement, regenerative capacity, sensory amplification, her voice faltered. This isn't evolution. This is engineering. The puppy stirred, letting out a faint yawn. Its golden eyes opened fully. Too focused, too aware for something only a day old. It met her gaze, and for a fleeting second, Dr. Harris felt it understood her. She stepped back, shaken. They were trying to create a perfect companion, she whispered. A living machine of loyalty and power. A faint knock echoed from the hallway, once, then twice. She froze, turning off the lights and holding her breath. Through the small window in the door, she saw movement. Shadows slipping past, silent and deliberate. Someone was searching the clinic. Dr. Harris's heart pounded. She scooped up the puppy, tucking it safely inside her coat. "You're not going anywhere," she whispered fiercely. As she slipped out the back door into the cold morning air, the sky above the town glowed faintly red with dawn. Somewhere behind her, a car engine started. Agent Collins wasn't done, but neither was she. For the first time, Dr. Harris realized this wasn't just about science or survival. It was about protecting a life that was never meant to exist. Dawn had fully broken by the time Dr. Harris reached the edge of the forest behind her clinic. The morning air was cold and sharp, carrying the scent of rain and earth. She held Aero 21 close to her chest, feeling the puppy's small heartbeat against her palm. Every instinct told her she was being followed, but turning back wasn't an option anymore. Behind her, the hum of an approaching car grew louder. She ducked behind a fallen log just as black boots hit the ground. Voices followed, men speaking into radios, methodical, professional. Target last seen at the clinic. Search the perimeter. Her breath hitched. They were here for the puppy. She looked down at the tiny creature nestled in her coat. It blinked up at her, eyes golden and unafraid, as if sensing her fear and choosing to calm her instead. She smiled weakly. "You're more than what they made you," she whispered. "You deserve to live free," a twig snapped. She froze, then sprinted deeper into the woods, heart pounding. The shouts behind her grew faint, lost in the whisper of trees and wind. When she finally stopped, sunlight filtered through the leaves, bathing them both in a golden glow. Gently, she set the puppy on the ground. "Go," she urged softly. But the pup didn't move. It sat, staring at her, tail wagging slowly. For a moment, she felt something pure. Connection. Trust, something human. Then from the distance, a faint bark echoed. Luna's bark. The puppy perked up, turning its head toward the sound. Dr. Harris gasped softly. Luna was alive, and calling her child home. Tears welled in her eyes. "Go to her," she whispered. The puppy trotted off into the trees, vanishing into the morning light. Moments later, the sound of engines faded away, leaving only the quiet rustle of the forest. Dr. Harris exhaled deeply, whispering to herself, maybe they weren't monsters after all. Maybe they were miracles born from our mistakes. She turned back toward the clinic, the rising sun painting the sky gold, a new day, a new beginning. If this story left you speechless, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible tales of courage, mystery, and hope.